Myphitic Blight haulers. We'd held out longer than I thought we could. But this wasn't fighting. This was not war. Not really. This was life in hell. An introduction to the horrors that would sweep across the galaxy if we did not stop them. I thought of my home, my family. I had to stop them. We all did. So we fought like madmen and women. I knew it would get nasty the instant they had us all in gas masks. The brass looked like Deathguard. We all did in all this get-up. But by the Holy Throne, did we need it. The vile enemy is beyond belief. Flies. They've even weaponized flies. Vile. And I was right. It was hell. The plague marines walking toward us, just walking out of the fog. We couldn't kill them. No matter how many times we hit them, we just didn't have the firepower. And how do you get fog on a ship? That was the odd thing. Fog on a ship. How? Well, we found out eventually. It was their things. You can't call them tanks. They're far too small for that. But they're not robots, not dreadnoughts, not walkers. They can get everywhere, though. But we can't hurt them any more than we can hurt the plague marines. We're losing the ship. A small flotilla of 10 vessels, mostly transports. We were on our way to an agri world in the middle of nowhere. Strange, but who am I to ask questions? So we were almost sitting ducks when we translated into real space, and they fell on us. We could hear Navy trying their best, firing like there was no tomorrow, but it wasn't enough. Of course, we couldn't tell anything at all until we saw the enemy fleet get closer. So close we could make them out. Which means they were practically on top of us. The void is very large, you see. We witnessed the boarding pods being fired. We witnessed their transports coming over. And they tore through us. But there were so many of us to tear through, I guess. The first hours were massed engagements, rank upon rank of us supported by Lehman Russ tanks. We tried to hold them in the bigger halls and bays, where our numbers would count. Or so we were told. But as they would punch through the bulkhead, a fog would enter. Those who had not adjusted their masks and suits correctly immediately went down, floods erupting from both ends until they died whimpering and begging for relief. The commissars were busy then. But out of the banks of fog would come entire waves of missiles. Frag exploded above us, tearing into our protective gear, killing where usually they would only mildly injure many, as we were exposed to this horrible smog. They punched through our tanks too with crack missiles. We'd fire into the dark, into the fog. The occasional burst of flame would signal a hit, but they were few. Then the fire coming out of the miasma would become melter, burning our tanks and emplacements. Finally, the beasts and plague marines would trudge out of the fog and exterminate us. I was party to a dozen such events if a one. But now, no. We are being hunted. A pack of us, remains of multiple squads, all roaming around the ship trying to survive. We cannot beat them. And the haulers, these Myphitic Blight haulers, they're tiny tank monsters. They hide in wait for us. As we pass into sections, gouts of muck are sprayed on some of us. Melter shot and frag explode amongst us. We run. Because if they catch us, they eat us. These horrible things have mouths and claws and teeth. I have witnessed them eating so many of my company, then spraying their vile viscera weapons on the rest of us. The muck is our friends. Emperor protect us. We cannot stop them. Welcome, gentle listener. I am Voldemort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the forces, factions, and war gear of the Warhammer 40k universe. The grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And this week, we look at one of the cheapest units one can purchase, one of the easiest to build, and most fun to paint in all of Warhammer. At a stonking 15 quid for 140 points worth of model, he is easily my hottest take for any army in Warhammer. And they look so cute and cuddly as well. Running around in wee packs of 3, they're a jolly sight. But let it be known that all of the aforementioned statements were just channeling the grandfather Nurgle. For cute, cuddly, and wee are certainly not words that any but the grandfather would use to describe these horrors. They are adaptable, swift and deadly, and yucky, of course, to such an extent that they even have rules to denote their putrescence, their overwhelming yuckiness, as we're about to hear. And so, as usual, for the very basics, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, powering into battle on a trio of articulated track units, the Myphitic Blight hauler is a light demon engine that provides the Deathguard with heavy firepower wherever it is needed. Resembling a bloat drone that has been stripped of its turbines, this strange machine has heavy weapons mounted on its carapace, typically a combination of multi-melter and missile launcher for mid to close range tank hunting. At the front of the demon engine's hull, a single eye lens stares at the enemy with feral hunger, while below it a fang-filled maw gnashes and drools. Should the enemy get too close, the Myphitic Blight hauler falls upon them like a ravenous wolf, biting and devouring, or sprays diseased bile over them from the rotted nozzle that juts between its fangs. The Myphitic Blight hauler is well armoured in rusted plates, and its blubbery flesh parts can soak up appalling trauma. It possesses a further defense mechanism in the form of the keratinous spouts that protrude from its armored body. As it devours the filth and corpse matter carpeting the battlefield, the machine churns the accumulated foulness within its fetid innards. Rank gases and miasmal fumes build within the demon engine's gastric boilers until, with a wet rasp, it spews them forth in billowing clouds. The wretched stink of these unnatural gases is enough to render nearby enemies unconscious, or send them into uncontrollable fits of vomiting. Meanwhile, the moistened matter borne upon the clouds hangs thick in the air, veiling the Myphitic Blight hauler and any nearby units behind an obscuring curtain of filth. In this way, packs of Myphitic Blight haulers provide rolling smog banks of revolting cover for the Deathguard advance, clogging the air with indescribable foulness, from which the Plague Marines emerge with bolters blazing. Most Deathguard commanders use packs of these demon engines to fill the role that Havocs or Obliterators might in other traitor legions. The possessing entity that animate Myphitic Blight haulers are as loyal as hounds to their masters, rushing to obey any instruction they are given. They are fast enough to keep pace with even the battle tanks of the Deathguard, while their smaller size and all-terrain mobility allows them to advance in support of Mortarion suns in even the densest or most difficult environment. When combined with their potent marksmanship and their ability to wreathe the Deathguard battle line in covering fumes, it is not hard to see why these demon engines are so highly valued. Though lone Myphitic Blight haulers are occasionally deployed to support the Deathguard, they are most commonly seen in packs of 3, often referred to as trilobes. The demon engines bond instinctively with one another, hunting as a pack and running down vulnerable quarry with a killer instinct. They are like carrion jackals, scavenger killers that can scent the slightest weakness and gather upon a battlefield to devour the dead and chase down the weak. Whether racing along as escorts to armoured spearheads, or prowling through burning cityscapes in support of advancing plague marines, Myphitic Blight haulers encircle the foe, strike at their most vulnerable points, then close in to consume the mangled corpses that are left in destruction's wake. End quote. Now I have faced these little pocket rockets many a time, as the hairy one, Lex, plays Deathguard, and what fun they are to play against. Blight haulers, amusing in size, less so in effect. These nasty little armoured assault vehicles do not carry troops, but they carry an attack all right. Small enough to get nearly anywhere external to a building, they are tough, fast, and heavily armoured. The natural resistance of the Deathguard abilities are disgustingly resilient, and having an invulnerable demonic save makes it difficult to remove them from the board, often requiring overcommitment of units or damage output. Small packs of them roaming the board is even less fun to face, or more, depending on your perspective, for they can shoot at mid to close range, rain missiles down at longer, but if you charge them, oh, you are in for a big surprise. Because your men will not wish to engage them, they will fight far more effectively than any Imperial armor, light or not, for they have nasty gnashing teeth and claws and can, without too much of a stretch, chomp through units of light to medium infantry. They're a danger to heavy units due to the melty, and missile fire, exploding when destroyed and raining filth across a battlefield that only harms their enemies, yet comparatively cheap for what they do, and their silhouette is small for their punch. All in all, a devilishly good unit to deploy. And always a welcome guest to the field of combat, because with these little terrors around, anything can happen. And that is what it's all about. An unpredictable clash of arms. Fun. I'm just hoping he doesn't combine these little beasts with his drones to make a fast Deathguard army. Now that would be a difficult army to predict, and one that would be huge fun to face. So if you have played or played against such a force, do hit the comments and tell us how it went, or how it goes. Yummy. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to Myphitic Blight haulers. If so, then please consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then hit the notifications button, as I would not want you to miss out. If you see the worth in what we are doing, then do also consider joining our Patreon, or giving the video a share if that is beyond your present scope. It would be a great boon. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.